everybody, this is the Post Movie Podcast. I'm Steve Head.
I'm John Black.
And on this episode, we've got new DVDs and Blu-rays to cover. A whole bunch of them. I don't even know where to begin.
I know where.
Go
I
for
know
it.
exactly where. All right, you know how sometimes the way this works is we get an email from the studio and they say, hey, would you like to get a copy of this?
Right.
And you say yes or no, depending on what it is. But sometimes things just arrive.
Yeah.
So the other day, this movie arrived, an animated movie called Disco Worms. Yeah. So I'm like, why would I watch this? Why would I watch something called Disco Worms? And it's the story of a young, misunderstood worm who discovers he's got no future. He's going to follow his dad and get a job at the compost heap until he discovers an old disco album in his father's closet. And he discovers that he's got funk. He's a funky worm. And he puts together a disco band and wins a talent contest and changes his life with disco music.
This is a kid's flick.
Again, but why would you watch it again, right? It was like crack. I couldn't stop. I just got the biggest kick out of this movie. The animation is both simple but surreal. I mean, these are worms, playing instruments and dancing disco songs, and even though they don't have arms or legs. Jane Lynch from Glee is the voice of the disco diva worm. And I guess it was a Scandinavian movie that they just bought and dubbed in English.
Are they using any familiar songs, or is this completely?
Oh yeah, Disco Inferno, I Love the Nightlife. They're all disco hits.
Affordable too.
Yeah.
You can get the rights for this guy.
I guess, if you went to the studio and said, hey, I've got this idea about dancing worms. Again, it's probably not for everyone.
Is this in a world of worms?
Yeah, it all takes place in the world of worms. But there are other bugs. But it's primarily worms.
I'll check it out.
Man, I don't want to recommend it, but I was just fascinated by the whole thing.
That's all it takes.
Yeah.
That's all it takes. You know what? I'm kicking myself because we've done a couple of episodes and failed to mention, this isn't a Blu-ray or DVD release, The Debt. I just realized I'd wanted to mention The Debt, which is playing at the Coolidge Corner Theater, and it's a terrific film.
Yeah.
I just I put it down in my notes. I get caught up in conversation, and then I just forget to talk about it. But anyway, The Debt with Helen Mirren. She plays a Mossad member who is out to rid the world of a very particularly hideously horrible Nazi who's still alive.
As opposed to your garden variety Nazi, this guy's really bad.
This guy was really, he was of the human experimentation kind.
Yeah.
But I guess they track him down and attempt to get rid of him.
Well, this isn't Helen Mirren. This is what's her name? The girl who plays a young Helen Mirren at the time.
I forget. It's
you're not prepared for this one.
Jessica Chastain.
Yeah, who is in The Help and about every other movie that's coming out. She's in like 3 or 4 this year. And she's great, and she plays the young Helen Mirren.
Right. The movie goes back and forth from, I think, 75 to 95. I didn't handle the shifts in time so well, especially when you have 2 different people playing the same character. Yeah. It can be a little confusing, but the movie really gets riveting.
Yeah.
Especially when they've captured this guy, and each of the people that are in on this trying to, I think they wanted to bring him back to Israel. Right, they wanted to bring him back
stand trial for what he did.
So Sam Worthington and what's his name? Kieran Hine?
No.
Tom Wilkinson.
Nope. I'm gonna
flip all who's the other freaking guy? I can't remember his name.
The other young guy?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have my notes.
Martin Koskis.
Okay.
I could be wrong. Anyway, they all have their time talking to this guy while he's handcuffed to a chair or a radiator in their house, and it's a riveting film.
Yeah,
it's a riveting
very
film.
Well done.
I really recommend it, and I apologize for not mentioning it in the earlier episodes, but go see it.
You're forgiven.
It's at the Coolidge, and now back to Blu-rays and
all
DVDs. Right. Man, Scarface. I was I mean, what can you say about Scarface? I wanted to talk about it last week, but I didn't want to put you out.
Well, I hadn't received my copy yet.
Yeah,
and again,
yeah,
I
it
didn't
wouldn't
get
have
the
been fair.
extra deluxe one you did, but
You never know what they're going to send you.
I haven't started it yet. It's 3 hours of my life. I just haven't made that commitment. I know I'll like it. It's a good movie. I'm sure it's Pacino's as outrageous and over the top as I remember him. It's as violent as I remember. And
Right.
boy, Michelle Pfeiffer,
Smoking.
smoking hot but skinny.
I want to say though, it's a really neat DVD release. Basically, what they've done is they've repackaged the material that was on the prior. I mean, it's a great Blu-ray release, but the material. I think most of the content was from like the 2003 or
This has been
2004
re-released a
DVD
lot of
release
times.
or something like that. But they do have a new documentary, the Scarface Phenomenon, which is presented in 3 parts, which is really good. And the filmmaker interviews were they actually get really in depth. I know they hype up how awesome every DVD. Always hype with their features. Always talk about how awesome it is. I love
Right.
the ones that really recognize the faults with the movie, and just talk about it for what it is. And so, Scarface, the DVD, the Blu-ray, it's great and all, but there's a lot of stuff that really hypes it up, as to how culturally awesome it is.
Right.
But there are some really good interviews in there that gonna let you know how they did this. They break it down.
Do they
It's not
interview a lot of
complete,
rap artists? I know it's big in the hip hop community.
If
Which if you don't know me, is not a community I know
But
much
there
about.
was one guy in the interview who made the point that you couldn't see an episode of MTV Cribs without seeing a Scarface poster.
Pretty much.
So
Pretty
kind of an
much.
exaggeration, but not far off.
No.
Not far off. So I do definitely recommend it, Scarface on Blu-ray. John, we want to talk about
Did you watch Fidel Sassoon the movie?
No, I haven't.
Again, not something I. It reminded me of that one about Valentino,
Huh.
and this is how Fidel Sassoon changed the world with his haircuts. It's pretty good. It's interesting because I don't know much about the guy.
Valentino changed the world with his gowns. He really did.
Right, and I don't know Sassoon. He
he's-
let women wear short hair or geometric cuts, but it's more about the guy's. After he became famous, what he did, he had his own like health guru program, and
Well, what did he do? Was he about cutting hair or shampoo?
yeah, he was a tough kid from the bad side of London, and he got a job. First he was a hair washer, and then someone taught him how to cut hair, and then he's the one who gave Mia Farrow that pixie haircut for Rosemary's Baby, and his career
Really?
skyrocketed. And it's funny
Wow.
because they show when Roman Polanski called him up and asked him if he wanted to cut Mia's hair. And they had a press conference set inside a boxing ring for some reason where he cut her hair for the press and gave her that iconic, if you want to think of it that way, haircut. Again, I don't know anything about the guy, but it was pretty fascinating, well-made documentary about
Could they get
something.
away? They probably could get away with a hairdresser doing that for a star today. Maybe not
Oh,
a bad
like
idea.
it depends. If they were going to cut someone, not a lot of actresses are known for their hair these days.
Yeah, I can't.
But it's a pretty decent movie, and it's the kind of thing where it's like Disco Worms. You might look at the cover and say, "There's no way I'm going to watch that," but it turns out to be pretty good. So
I definitely want to
recommend
see it. I definitely want to see it. John, man, you had talked about If a
yes,
couple episodes ago, and I finally got around to seeing all the content. And I got to tell you, I love this movie. I really do. It's very anti-establishment, and I don't mean that in a way that it's really disturbing, and I love it because it's disturbing, and it's like the boarding school within which this takes place sort of represents society, and but I love it in the way that it's surrealist,
yeah,
like you're watching a play. It's like you're kind of like you're not watching reality. You're watching this all of these acts that are just non-reality performance.
yeah. It's not
I
even
don't
heightened
know.
reality. I mean, it switches from color to black and white. It switches.
Oh, you know
from-
why I did that?
No.
Well, his Lindsay Anderson, the director of the film, he was told by his cinematographer that his German cinematographer, I forget his name, couldn't guarantee good color balance in the chapel scenes.
Uh-huh.
So Lindsay Anderson said, I'll just go ahead and film it in black and white. So they filmed some of the chapel scenes in black and white. Came out so well that Anderson said, you know what, I'm going to film some other scenes in black and white if I feel like it. So there's really no...
There's no rhyme or
there's
reason.
really no
Yeah.
reason for it other than that it looked great. And I think some people have come to say that, well, the black and white moments represent the more intimate moments with the students.
Right.
But really there's no rhyme or reason for it.
Well, this is one. I wrote this in my review for it. I would suggest anyone who's not overly familiar with Lindsay Anderson or this movie, when you get the Criterion, again, this is what Criterion does so well. Read the book, watch the extras, and then
the booklet
then
helped
watch
out
the
so
movie.
much with this.
You need some kind
Some
of
great
background, not only for because this was. You may not realize it now, but when it was at Cannes, it was an X-rated movie that caused a lot of controversy. In fact, in the booklet, there's this great page where the poster for the movie has, which side of the argument will you fall on?
Right.
And half the poster is, oh, this is the greatest movie ever, and the other half is, this is a piece of shit. Mm-hmm. And it's just, that's the way it divided the country, or is the film world at the time.
It's a neat story as to how it even got made.
Yeah.
Paramount, who ultimately produced the film, had intended to shelve it because they couldn't even sell it to the arts theaters in America. But they were told by the British government that Paramount needed to fulfill a requirement to show a certain number of British films each year. And so I think Paramount had Barbarella playing in London in 1968, and it was failing. So they decided to shelve that. And they called the production company's office, which I think was owned by Albert Finney, and said, "Well, we're gonna put that film that we produced that we couldn't get sold in America. We're gonna put that in the British theaters." And it turns out that they had 10 prints of If on the shelf in the office in London, so they put it in the theaters. And Malcolm McDowell and Lindsay Anderson talk about spending, the next couple of months just marveling at all the Ks.
Yeah,
the lines around the corner and. It's kind of, it was sort of, in a way, it was very much an improbable film.
And they went on to make 2 other movies after this, Oh Lucky Man and
Right.
Hotel Britannia.
Right.
And Oh Lucky Man's one of my favorite movies of all time.
Really? I haven't seen it. I'm
an
very intrigued
epic.
after this.
Yeah. Malcolm McDowell it's the same character. I don't know if he has the same or not, but it's that character after he grows up and gets a job as he goes into the working world.
Well, it's the same name. I don't think, if I recall from the booklet, that it's not the same... not completely the same persona, although it's the same character.
Right. He gets a job as a coffee bean salesman, and it features a young, beautiful, and often naked Helen Mirren.
Really?
Yeah. So right
There's
then,
another reason.
it's on my shelf. So
another reason to check out the Criterion DVDs is Malcolm McDowell's contributions to the commentary. He is a great storyteller, and so there's a girl in this film who is just named the girl. She's like mysteriously just the girl, and so this takes place at a boarding school where life is pretty much run by the whips who keep all the students in order, and rarely do they get the opportunity to go out outside the walls of the school. But Malcolm McDowell and his 3 friends make an excursion into the city one day, and they steal a motorbike, but they also stop by a coffee shop where he makes the moves on the girl that works at the coffee shop. Awesome scene in black and white. It's just this sort of naked surrealist confrontation, like boy meets girl. His buddies knew what was going to happen, something like savagery between their two desires. Like all the pent up frustrations in him and her just sort of break out in this weird sort of conjugal scene that's filmed on the floor of the coffee shop. So this girl is sort of like a talisman. She's like a mystery to them, and it's neat how she comes back into play towards the end of the movie, where was also brought to my attention that the main characters don't even have dialogue because Anderson went for the visual poetry, I guess, of these students revolting against the establishment with guns.
Yeah.
Not with fruits and vegetables. It's
it's
disturbing.
The great fruit and vegetable revolt.
Yeah, great film. Highly recommended. Another one, Train Spotting,
Yeah.
which watched it on DVD a couple days ago. Again, I'm totally and completely like pissed at Danny Boyle for being a great filmmaker and making a really good film.
I don't know why you get angry at people who make great films.
Because I resent, it's like I'm very impressed, and then I end up like, damn, I wish I could have done that. Damn, he's so good. It makes me a bit resentful.
Okay.
What else can I say? The DVD, actually, it's basically a repackaging of the Blu-ray is a repackaging of the earlier content, but it's awesome to see to see the material in DVD. And I know it's like, from the mid '90s, I think here at this point. When was Train Spotting? '96.
Well, you've got the
something
DVD
like that.
right
It was
there.
one
Look
of
on the back.
McGregor's first films. It just has this energy, this pulse. And they capture it. And one thing that I was not accepting of at the time is that I didn't. This film took some. I'm really of the opinion that if you're going to watch something that's even mildly surrealist, which Train Spotting is, and which If is, that it's actually, in terms of other people accepting it, important to know that before going in. Like I would have liked to have known more about the whole concept of surrealism. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can be moved by the strange imagery, but to know that this is the intent actually would have made it more accessible to me. I think I'm more open to that kind of thing
right
now,
right.
But at the time I wasn't so.
I have a funny Train Spotting story. I saw a theatrical production of it in L.A.
Really?
Yeah, and it was one of these things. I was out there on a junket. I had spare time. I was looking through the paper. It was in an office building. It was like a pay as much as you can thing. And I was in the very front row of a tiny, like the theater was a little bigger than this living room. And it opens with the scene where Spud shits the bed.
Yeah.
And, in the movie, they fight over the sheets and the shit gets flung everywhere. On stage, they fought over the sheet and the shit got flung everywhere. And, I mean, it hit the audience. It missed me, but it was hitting people in the audience. And you could smell chili. They just filled the sheets with chili and flung chili. But they had everything from the dead baby on the ceiling to everything in the movie was on the stage. It was an exciting theater. A lot of people didn't make it through the whole production, but I loved it. And it's a great movie too.
You've become quite the theater maven.
Well, I've always that's a secret thing. Not only is Ewan McGregor's great in this, but
Robert Carlyle.
Yeah, that was the first time I saw him.
Yeah, both those guys.
Now,
Johnny Lee Miller, I think, was in Hackers. I'd known him from that. I think it was prior to Train Spotting.
Have you ever read the book or any Irvine Welsh books?
No, but they have a couple of intriguing interviews pieces that he did for the DVD, and that he wrote it. He says, and he never expected it to go anywhere. He didn't expect it to get published. He didn't expect it to be taken by anybody.
Yeah.
So the fact that it went as far as it did was kind of it says something about the reality of what he was writing about, or the like the meanness, like the visceralness of what he was conveying in his writing, just kind of like was picked up by people. So
well, you should he wrote a book called, how you like to be warned ahead of time if something surreal's about to happen.
Yeah.
He wrote a book called Filth, which the lead character is a detective who has a tapeworm, and the tapeworm slowly takes over the detective, and it slowly takes over the book. It starts forming on the pages, and
this is Naked Lunch like.
Yeah, it's pretty strange. But he wrote a sequel to Train Spotting called Porno, which they were trying to get into a movie, but I don't think anyone wants to do it. Maybe when they all have such good careers now, so who knows if Danny Boyle flops sometime, maybe he'll make Porno.
It's great stuff.
Yeah,
I do recommend it. Man, did you get a chance to watch Straw Dogs?
Yes,
I was just blown away by it.
By Susan George?
Well, by Susan George, but also it's just the whole idea here is that people don't accept outsiders, and the tenacity that Dustin Hoffman's character has to defend his home it just went. The movie's like like a Sam Peckinpah film in the sense that it is a Sam Peckinpah
Well,
film,
yeah.
but in the sense that it's about going too far,
Mm-hmm.
and he just goes way too far. Well, the townies.
Yeah.
These, I guess it takes place in the.
Ireland?
I think it's English.
Is
it's in
it?
The,
It's British.
I can't say exactly where, but
Some little village.
they're like the rednecks of England.
Yeah.
These guys, and their intent to, break into the house. To get to basically, the movie sets itself actually up really well in the first 10 minutes, where you meet all the main characters. The fact that Dustin Hoffman's an outsider, he's a mathematician who's renting a house in the country with his girlfriend. I guess it's his wife,
Mm-hmm.
Susan George. And in the opening few minutes, they hire some redneck townies to do some garage work for them. Turns out that one of these guys had a prior relationship with his wife, and
He wants some more.
yeah, the movie is kind of, in a way, it's about ego. They recognize the fact that Dustin Hoffman is like a
Nerd.
like a flaky kind of guy with no backbone, and these insidious creeps, basically trick him. They take him out on a hunting trip, and while he's gone, in one of the most disturbing scenes, certainly for 1971, Susan George is raped. Not just raped by one guy, but two, in which becomes this a really disconcerting scene between the two guys that are raping her. I mean, it is a play of egos that is just disturbing. So, a series of events with this that happened to center on this older fella, middle-aged fella, who's a sexual predator in town. Accidentally,
David Warner.
What?
David Warner, who went on to Tron, and
That's who that was.
Oh,
I
yeah.
didn't recognize him.
Yep.
Yeah, he kind of does the Lenny and the Mice and Men thing, and accidentally kills a young girl, and not knowing this, just only having developed a certain amount of empathy for him, this character, because Dustin Hoffman accidentally plows into him with his car. They take him back to the house, and the townies come looking for the guy
Mm-hmm.
to,
Get him.
basically hang him for, having done something with the girl. They don't really know what's happened to the girl
Right.
yet, but and Dustin Hoffman decides to make a stand to hold his home, and it's a confrontation. It's insane.
It's funny. You were saying how everything's established in like the first 10 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, I watched it twice, and you play it back, and it's like you see everybody crossing there.
Right. So what's the first image you get of Susan George? Nipples.
Yes.
The screen is filled with her nipples poking through the sweater. You don't even see her face. You don't see anything. That's like the first shot of her is just nipples.
Yeah.
And it's just like, all right, I know it's 1971, but usually we have the face shot first. Okay, well, and that does establish how the movie and the other guys treat her.
Man, Peckinpah had no qualms about putting stuff on screen. In a way, like Brian De Palma, it's like they both made great films, and in a sense, their moral compass was really questionable.
Yeah.
They what do you think? I mean, they put stuff on screen that basically challenges the audience.
I'm not sure if they're putting it there to challenge the audience or because they are that kind of guy. Like they are
It's questionable,
misogynist
and
pigs.
It makes for some great filmmaking.
So after you
It's like, are you doing something deviant by watching a Brian De Palma film and liking it? Is Peckinpah actually a social deviant by providing audiences this kind of product?
Well, then also is he glorifying violence by slowing it down and making it artistic, or is
I think,
is that
part
making
of the
it
criticism
artistic?
of Peckinpah
Yeah.
is when a violent thing happens, he puts it in slow motion. He does that in some infinitesimal moments, but you see them, as these guys are trying to break into the house, and
Right, or the first time Susan George gets slapped by one of them, it's in slow motion, and
yeah,
the rape is in slow motion. It's brutal. It's brutal. Now, so you've seen the 1971 Straw Dogs.
Right.
Next week, we're going to see the 2011 Straw Dogs.
As far as I know, the only main thing they've changed is that James Marsden is plays a screenwriter.
Right.
He's the owner of the house, and I think his wife is Kate Bosworth.
Yep. Yeah, and the lead redneck is the guy from True Blood, Skarsgård.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I think I mentioned this last week. I'm old enough to remember when they would just re-release movies, not remake them. I don't see a reason to remake this. But
they're going to take the violence in different directions. I don't know if him being a screenwriter is going to be as interesting as Dustin Hoffman being a mathematician.
Yeah.
Who is very concerned about particulars. And he's very concerned about particulars and how things relate, but has a serious flaw when it comes to human relations.
Right.
So he and his wife in the film, Susan George, they have this what appears to be this wonderful relationship, but then there's like these moments where all of a sudden they get into these like vicious fights.
Yeah, I think, and they always use her as kind of the fulcrum, like she's just a petulant child. And she was really just trying to spur him on. She was just trying to give him some, to tell him to stand up for himself. But even when he's obviously got to work on these scientific formulas he's working on, she just kind of mopes around because she's not being paid attention to, and then she ends up flirting with the guys, or
Yes, what is even that is that's a very good point, because I think find the audience members found it disturbing that when she was being raped, you couldn't tell if she was like.
Don't say it. Liking it?
Yeah, it is very disturbing.
Again, I think that's a Peckinpah commentary, because she does start to respond to the guy she had a
Dustin
relation.
Hoffman's not giving her.
Well,
in terms
during the rape,
like,
she starts to respond to it because she knew the guy. She remembers that guy from the past relationship, whatever.
Right.
But she does start to respond pleasurably to what is a rape. But then, when she's in the afterglow of this moment, the second guy rapes her, and then there's no anything but, there's no liking of that at all.
And from that point on in the film, she has these moments of like flashback, traumatic stress.
Right.
That Peckinpah brings back in the editing, and it's just.
That was a little heavy-handed for me, but I get the point.
It is heavy-handed, man. 1971 too. It's out on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
I think this week or next week. But anyway, definitely check it out. And I think we're good. So check us out online. We're at post-movie.net. We're also on Facebook. And we're also on iTunes. So if you can leave us a review, that would be fantastic. And send us an email at contact@post-movie.net. We'd like to know what you think of the show. And we'll be nice. We'll respond in kind. Nicely, I suppose, right, Joe?
Yes, we will. Oh, very nicely.
So until next week, I'm Steve Head.
I'm John Black.
So long, everyone.